There are wealthy neighborhoods, there are exclusive districts, and then there's Paris's 7th arrondissement, where even the air molecules seem to arrange themselves with better taste than most luxury hotels. This is where money doesn't just talk. It communicates through an elaborate Morse code of subtle fashion choices and perfectly timed appearances at the right social events. Here, parking spots cost more than houses in other cities, and the neighborhood association meetings probably require black tie attire. Therefore, in today's episode, I'll be your personal guide through this iconic area, where success comes to graduate into something more refined, as we take you on a tour through the most expensive neighborhood in Paris. When you're worth billions, there are 3 ways to prove it. Buy a private island, launch yourself into space, or simply own an apartment in Paris's 7th arrondissement, though I suspect my neighbor's pied-à-terre here cost more than some satellites. Welcome to the Saint-Thomas-d'Aquin quarter, where property prices casually float around 17,000 euros per square meter, making it arguably the most expensive, predominantly residential neighborhood in Paris. Though calling it predominantly residential feels like calling the Louvre predominantly artistic. Nestled between the Seine River and Boulevard Saint-Germain, this slice of Parisian perfection has been home to the French upper class since the 17th century. In fact, the area became so fashionable that the phrase le Faubourg, referring to this ancient neighborhood, has become synonymous with French nobility itself, though you can bet that modern residents are more likely to arrive by Tesla than horse-drawn carriage. The quarter's architectural landscape reads like a textbook of refined excess. Magnificent Haussmann-style buildings line wide, tree-shaded avenues, while hidden 18th-century mansions peek out from behind manicured gardens, though my personal mansion's garden could use a trim. The prestigious roster of past and present residents tells its own story. Literary giants like Apollinaire and Chateaubriand once walked these streets, while in more recent times, fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld, musician Serge Gainsbourg, and even Mick Jagger have called this arrondissement home. And public spaces here don't just exist, they perform. The Jardin Catherine Labouré offers a hidden oasis behind high walls, while the Esplanade des Invalides provides grand views of the golden dome of Les Invalides. Even the local parks seem to understand the importance of maintaining proper social distance from the common gardens of lesser districts. Commercial offerings match the residential prestige. Le Bon Marché, the world's first modern department store, continues to set trends with its carefully curated selection of luxury goods. High-end children's boutiques like Tartines et Chocolat and Bonpoint ensure even the youngest residents maintain appropriate standards of elegance, because one simply cannot send little Eloise to École Maternelle in off-the-rack attire. While the Champs-Élysées might boast slightly higher commercial property prices, the 7th maintains something far more valuable: discretion. This is where wealth whispers rather than shouts, where old money speaks in perfectly modulated tones, and where even the street signs seem to have better posture than most neighborhoods. But to truly understand how this district became the pinnacle of Parisian prestige, we need to step back in time, to an era when aristocrats first decided that the left bank was, in fact, the right side of history. If you think finding prime real estate in the 7th is difficult now, imagine trying to build here in 8000 BC. The earliest human settlements in what would become Paris's most prestigious address were little more than hunter-gatherer encampments along the Seine, though I suspect their views of the future Eiffel Tower location were unobstructed. Between 4500 and 4200 BC, temporary settlements began popping up in the region. Archaeologists have discovered fascinating artifacts, including wooden canoes used for fishing on the Seine, presumably the Bronze Age equivalent of today's luxury yachts. The area's transformation from prehistoric camping ground to pinnacle of luxury began in earnest with the arrival of the Parisian, a Celtic tribe, between 250 and 225 BC. They established the first proper settlements along the Seine, though their idea of waterfront property might differ slightly from current standards. The Romans arrived in 52 BC, establishing their Gallo-Roman garrison town of Lutetia. While the main forum was located in today's 5th arrondissement, our beloved 7th served as agricultural land, making it perhaps the world's most expensive former farmland. Then, the medieval period brought significant changes, particularly with the construction of the Abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés in the 6th century. This prestigious monastery became a center of scholarship and culture, setting a precedent for the neighborhood's intellectual legacy, even if today's residents are more likely to discuss hedge funds than hymns. But the true transformation began in the 17th century, when French nobility, tired of the cramped and polluted Marais district, began seeking cleaner air and more space. They migrated to what would become the 7th arrondissement, bringing with them their architects, their fortunes, and their impeccable taste in real estate. This noble exodus sparked a building boom of grand mansions and hotels particuliers. Many of these magnificent mansions were confiscated and transformed into national institutions. The French expression les ors de la République, meaning the golds of the Republic, comes from this period, referring to the luxurious environments of these newly nationalized palaces. During the 19th century, the arrondissement hosted 5 universal exhibitions, each leaving its mark on the neighborhood's architecture. The most notable, of course, being that modest little iron tower built for the 1889 exhibition, though at the time locals complained it ruined their property values. If they only knew. This steady progression from prehistoric fishing spot to pinnacle of Parisian luxury has created something unique, a neighborhood where every stone tells a story of wealth, power, and impeccable taste. Though to truly know what makes the 7th special, we need to look at its crown jewel. When they say the Eiffel Tower stands at the entrance to the 7th arrondissement, what they really mean is that the entire neighborhood serves as a rather elaborate front yard for Paris's most iconic resident, though I bet she doesn't pay her share of the property taxes. Built for the 1889 Exposition Universelle, marking the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution, this 324-meter iron masterpiece wasn't just any construction project. Out of 107 competing proposals, Gustave Eiffel's design was selected, though calling him just the designer feels like calling Versailles a summer cottage. Here's a delicious bit of historical irony. The man whose name graces this global icon wasn't even its primary architect. Gustave Eiffel was, in fact, the entrepreneur. The real creative genius came from engineers Maurice Koechlin and Émile Nouguier, along with architect Stephen Sauvestre, though one imagines their business cards would have been rather crowded with all those credits. The tower's construction began on the 1st of July 1887 and was completed just over 2 years later, a timeline that makes modern luxury apartment renovations seem positively glacial by comparison, though what's truly remarkable isn't just how quickly it was built, but how nearly it almost disappeared. You see, Eiffel struck quite the deal with the city. He would finance 80% of the project himself in exchange for a 20-year permit to exploit it commercially. In its first year alone, 2 million visitors generated $1 million in ticket revenue, proving that even in 1889, location really was everything. Eiffel himself maintained a private apartment at the top, hosting important guests and conducting experiments, though one suspects the view played at least a small role in his choice of laboratory location. Today, visitors can still peek into this historic space, assuming they're willing to climb those 700-plus stairs. The tower was originally meant to be dismantled after 20 years, but fate and technology had other plans. It turned out this elaborate lightning rod was the perfect radio antenna. During World War I, it proved invaluable for intercepting German messages, transforming from tourist attraction to tactical asset overnight. These days, visiting the Iron Lady is surprisingly democratic. 11 euros will get you to the second floor via stairs, while 21 euros buys an elevator ride to the summit. However, personally, I prefer viewing it from my penthouse hotel room terrace with a glass of Chateau Lafite in hand. The tower's presence has shaped everything around it. The Champ de Mars stretches out before it like a green carpet, while the surrounding streets seem to orient themselves in reverent angles toward their metallic monarch. Even the neighborhood's other architectural treasures, and there are many, seem to acknowledge her reign with dignified deference. But while millions flock to this iron icon annually, the true essence of the 7th arrondissement lies not in what tourists photograph, but in how its residents live, though that's a story best told over aperitifs at La Serre, shall we? When you're strolling down the Rue Saint-Dominique, which locals fondly call the spine of the 7th, you'll quickly realize this isn't just another Parisian street. It's a carefully curated runway connecting three iconic monuments, from the Musée d'Orsay in the east, past the Hôtel des Invalides, to the Eiffel Tower in the west. The 7th isn't just home to France's upper class, it's where France itself conducts business. The Palais Bourbon houses the National Assembly, where 577 deputies represent the French people, though one suspects some representatives find their constituents' addresses slightly less prestigious than their workplace. Take the Invalides complex, commissioned in 1670 by Louis XIV. While it began as a hospital and retirement home for wounded soldiers, today it houses some of Paris's finest museums and Napoleon's tomb, in case you need a lesson in French grandeur. The Golden Dome, standing 107 meters tall, was actually Paris's highest point before that upstart Eiffel came along. The neighborhood's cultural credentials are equally impressive. The Musée d'Orsay, housed in a former train station, showcases French art from 1848 to 1914. The Rodin Museum, nested in the Hôtel Byron, displays the master's works in what was once his personal workshop, though these days most local residents prefer collecting hedge funds to collecting sculptures. Shopping here isn't just retail therapy, it's a historical experience. Le Bon Marché, founded in 1838, holds the title of world's first department store. When Aristide Boucicaut revamped it in 1852, he introduced revolutionary concepts like fixed prices and return policies, though today's prices would probably make even the original clientele pause. The Rue Claire, in the Gros Caillou neighborhood, maintains its village atmosphere with artisanal shops lining cobblestone streets. Butchers, bakers, florists, wine merchants, and fish markets create a daily ballet of commerce, albeit one where even the baguettes seem to have better pedigrees than most people. But what truly sets the 7th apart isn't its monuments or shops, it's how naturally it wears its prestige. While other wealthy districts might flaunt their fortune, here old money whispers in perfectly modulated tones over aperitifs at Le Cinq Mars. Even the children, impeccably dressed in bon point, seem to understand the importance of elegant discretion. The diplomatic presence adds another layer of refinement. Foreign embassies occupy many of the district's finest mansions, turning routine diplomatic functions into exercises in architectural appreciation. Yet for all its grandeur, the 7th maintains pockets of genuine neighborhood life. Hidden courtyards, secret gardens, and quiet cafes provide refuge for those in the know. But to better interpret this delicate balance of power, prestige, and daily life is maintained, we need to peek behind the perfectly painted shutters. Maintaining Paris's most prestigious postal code isn't simply a matter of history and haute couture. It's an intricate dance of wealth, power, and discretion that's been perfected over centuries. You see, real estate agents in the 7th don't just sell apartments, they curate legacies. Many of the most prestigious properties never officially hit the market. They transfer through private networks and family offices, in transactions as quiet as they are astronomical. The neighborhood's status as home to both old money and government power creates a unique ecosystem. Residents share their streets with national institutions, foreign embassies, and some of France's most important government buildings. The Palais Bourbon, home to the National Assembly, sets a tone of dignified authority that seems to infuse the entire arrondissement. The local economy operates on an entirely different wavelength than the rest of Paris. The neighborhood's boutiques and businesses don't just serve customers, they maintain generations-old relationships with families who've called the 7th home since before the Eiffel Tower was considered fashionable. The true essence of the 7th lies in its ability to maintain two parallel worlds simultaneously. While tourists flood the streets around the Eiffel Tower and Les Invalides, life in the residential quarters continues at its own unhurried pace. Hidden courtyards and private gardens provide sanctuary for those who know where to find them, while ancient mansions keep their secrets behind walls that have witnessed centuries of Parisian history. Even the neighborhood's relationship with its most famous resident, that Iron Lady standing proudly at its edge, is complex. While millions flock to photograph the Eiffel Tower, residents of the 7th have mastered the art of living alongside an international icon while maintaining their privacy and routines, though one finds the evening light show makes an excellent dinner party backdrop. The preservation of the 7th's character is perhaps its most remarkable achievement. In a city that constantly reinvents itself, this arrondissement has managed to retain its essence while adapting to modern times. The same streets that once carried horse-drawn carriages now accommodate diplomatic convoys and luxury electric vehicles, yet somehow the spirit of Le Faubourg remains unchanged. And as night falls over the Seine, as lights begin to twinkle in windows that have witnessed centuries of Parisian history, the 7th continues its eternal performance of effortless sophistication. And now, we'd love to see you in the comments. Would you like to live in an apartment in the 7th arrondissement? Or is Paris's activity too much for you, even if it's in the nicest part? I look forward to hearing your thoughts, so don't be shy and let me know below. Thanks for joining another episode of Sir Luxury Travel, and see you on the next one.